hated who I was. I didn't look in the mirror. It was one day on a bus, I had to get off in the middle of a motorway, screaming at the bus driver to stop. Just panic attack. Basically, the toilet talk was engaging 1 billion people from the toilet. Everything I do is to help people not end up like I did, and if they do, to know they're not alone. There's a difference in wellness and well-being. There's a really clear distinction that needs to be made.
2, 1, rolling.
This is StoryCo, the podcast about the business of story and storytelling. I'm James Kirkham. Let's get into it. My guest today is what some might call a therapist's dream. He broke his leg playing rugby at 20, lost the only identity he had, and spent the next stretch of his life immobile and unqualified, hiding anxiety and an eating disorder so severe he was being sent home from his banking job because he couldn't speak. He's now one of the most credible voices in the world on workplace well-being. He's an Amazon #1 bestseller, a TEDx speaker, the founder of Healthy, the world's first corporate health operating system. But how did he get there? A route that involves a one-way flight to Argentina, a hostel on the side of a mountain in Ecuador, Oxford Brookes, a wildcard spot on the Deloitte grad scheme, and a career that started life as a TED Talk filmed from a toilet cubicle. He'll tell you that wellness and well-being are not the same thing. One is a $9 trillion industry trying to sell you a hot stone massage. The other's the actual texture of your life. We get into all of it, the anxiety and the bulimia, why bricklayers are the best meditators in the world, the toilet talks, and the one line he keeps coming back to: well-being isn't something you bolt onto a business, it's the output of good work and productive toilet breaks. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome to StoryCo. It's lovely to have you here. We have a little almost point that we always start with. Rather than me reading out a long CV, I open with 4 words, and that is, tell me a story.
That's a good way of starting it. It's always awkward sitting there listening to people talk about the stuff you've done. You just want to be like, oh, okay, goodbye. Thank you very much. So it was about the book. I wrote a book, so I guess I am talking about my CV slightly. It's called 52 Weeks of Wellbeing, and it was released in Dutch yesterday, which is amazing. And it almost didn't happen. I'm just going to tell you about the book, and I was thinking about it on the journey over here. And 52 Weeks of Wellbeing was initially toilet break wellbeing. You think that sounds a bit weird, right? It does, yeah. And that was the book proposal I put forward. And they said, yeah, we're a business book publisher, not a chance. We're never ever going to do this. I was like, okay, terrific. My dreams and hopes.
That's the end. Done. Yeah.
But that was, I said, give me another chance. I said, what about making work less shit 1 week at a time? It's keeping the toilet in there somehow.
Clearly.
And then they were like, well, we're a business book publisher still. I told you that before. It's still not going to work.
Please leave.
Like, okay. There's another time they humoured me again, and we settled on 52 weeks. But how toilet break wellbeing came about, I had a little show on LinkedIn called Toilet Break Wellbeing. And I started thinking, where's a place that we can all do something positive? What's a linchpin that everyone has where you can pin a positive habit to? I was sitting on the throne, I'm thinking, what's one thing we do 8 times every day? Apparently it's 8 times. Count tomorrow, you'll be really surprised.
Really?
You think 8's a lot?
Yeah, feels like loads.
But, so if you did 10 press-ups every time you went to the toilet, you'd do 29,200 press-ups. And not only would you scare the people in the cubicle next to you, but you'd be absolutely wham next year, right? And it's about these little things done with regularity. That is the secret sauce of well-being. There's no app, there's no webinar, there's no TED Talk as good as mine was that helps you, right?
A TED Talk from a toilet?
That's where it took me. So then I proposed to, got asked to speak at TEDx Shoreditch. So I was doing these videos, getting told consistently by my employer, would you pack it in? You're a consultant, you shouldn't be doing videos from the toilet. I said, well, you did hire me doing them, so I'm going to continue going. And then basically the toilet talk was engaging 1 billion people from the toilet, because that's my goal, to engage 1 billion people in this subject. And it's partly to trivialise when I was so anxious when I was a young man, I felt like I was going to piss myself every time I left my flat. So it was almost a point at that moment.
Through your anxiety?
Yeah. It was one day on a bus, I had to get off in the middle of a motorway, screaming at the bus driver to stop. Just panic attack, and then this anxiety just every time I left the front door. So partly the show was to laugh at that, and I did a video in the toilet. I was like, you flush and you flourish, let's go, let's do a little thing. Did 100 episodes. This then turned into the book proposal into toilet break wellbeing. That didn't happen. Then we settled on 52 weeks. They were like, we love it, let's do it. So then I signed the deal in February, and this was like an amazing moment, like a wild moment. Like it started on a flipping toilet, right? And when years ago I was like so anxious I couldn't be without one. And then, so I started writing. And really like routines. And I said, okay, so every Saturday and Sunday, we're starting February, it's due in July. I said, I'm going to give it to them in June and show them who they're messing with. So if I ever want to do another one, they think it was a pleasure working with him. So I had a spreadsheet, 52 chapters, all researched. Then I said, every Saturday and Sunday I want to go write it because I was working full time. So I went to Wetherspoons in Putney and always sat at table 212 by the water. I'm waiting for my blue plaque on the table, by the way. Like that's got to happen, isn't it?
Why 212?
I don't know, just a cool table by the water, and then I made that routine, and I knew as soon as I sat there, I meant business, and I was like locked in, like some Fred again or Hans Zimmer, depending on my mood, like like. You know what I mean? And I had this little spreadsheet I knew what to do, 2.67 chapters per week across that window, so I knew I was getting ahead. And I wanted to finish the book, so I flew one way to Sicily and travelled along the north of the island. And I'd like another routine, because I love making it like a little game. I said, okay, Saturday and Sunday, done, then relax. And so I started writing about 10 o'clock after going for a long walk in Sicily, wherever I was. Then I'd work, have some lunch, have a glass of wine with lunch, and then maybe a couple of beers. And as soon as I was getting a bit squiddly, I was like one eye, I was like, that's enough for the day, shut the lid and go walking. So I think the chapters might have got fruitier towards the end. It was amazing. It hit like #1 for like Amazon Business Books, which was unreal.
Incredible.
So it's a fake bestseller, but it still hit #1 briefly. It was above like Simon Sinek and people like that. And
That's not fake.
yeah, Amazon list. It's not Sunday Times, you know what I mean? Not yet anyway, next one. So that was amazing. And I was reminded yesterday, I was at a Bupa event. They were really kind because I was doing some work with them. The head of like commercial UK insurance bought 600 books for all the people, and they sent them with a Kit Kat, take a break, you deserve this. There was an inscription on the front cover. I'll wrap the story up in a second, but I was doing a talk at Coca-Cola with two amazing women that work there, Marie and Suzanne. And Marie's got a copy of my book, and it's got dog legs. It's got bits ripped out of it. Post-its galore. She said it's the most read book she's got. And I opened the front cover to sign it for her. And it said, dear Bupa colleague, I hope you enjoy this book. So someone from Bupa said, screw this, I don't want it. Chucked it on Welder Books, got 98p for it. Suzanne bought it at Coca-Cola. I thought, you cheeky buggers.
That's brilliant.
It's doing the rounds, and like you get messages, and it's gone live in Korean, and it went live, and no one flipping told me until I saw pictures of it everywhere. And it's been amazing, like an absolute pleasure, and it all started on the toilet. So
I think you're a psychologist's dream to unpack. Unfortunately, that's not my job today, but there's
give it a nudge if you want.
There's so much of that I want to get into. I think much of your success in the spaces that you're working in, I'd love you to talk a little bit more about, but it's a bit anti-guru like, right? You know, you've got this kind of former bricklayer, kind of down-to-earth tone, but with a professor-like knowledge and expertise. How did this all even start?
Let's go back to the beginning, right? So yeah, I worked as a sparky when I was younger. Anyone not English, that's an electrician. And I was training to be an electrician. That was my, I didn't do very well at school, difficult situation at home. I was undiagnosed autistic. So then I would kind of force myself, like square peg, round hole, you know what I mean? You definitely get it.
Big time.
So I didn't do very well. That wasn't on the cards then. I don't think it wasn't that I wasn't bright. It just wasn't able to do it at that time. And so I was training to be a spark because I had no GCSEs really. A-levels were non-existent. My dad's a chippy. My brother's a chippy. My uncle's a chippy. So I said, I'm going to do one better and be a sparky. You know what I mean?
Chippy for the non-English, carpenter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You might have to translate throughout. And it was, I loved it. And like, it's good crack. You were really good people. And I was playing rugby and broke my leg on my ankle playing rugby. And that was like a changing moment in my life. I couldn't continue with that career. I spiraled into a really deep depression, was like unable to walk, in debt, no qualifications, 20 years old. And I was like, well, screw this.
So what was it, like a year basically?
Yeah. Immobile.
Unable to do both the work, but the thing that you loved as well.
Yeah, my entire identity was gone. I was a rugby playing sparky.
Yeah.
And if I'm not a rugby playing spark, then what was I? There was nothing beneath that. I hadn't worked on myself, and I didn't have a very strong sense of self-worth. So then when that was gone, that was it. And I'd end up in a place where I wanted to take my life, and if it wasn't for my mum and my nan, then I would have. So big up to all the parents and grandparents helping young people, because this is so important, right?
Were you transparent and candid with your feelings?
With my mum, I was. Yeah. So she was.
And that must have been, needless to say, very hard for her.
She's the only person I spoke to for many years, and then After that, I started trying to lose weight, go to the gym. I found a very good way of losing weight, and it's called bulimia. It's not necessarily the best way of doing it.
You shouldn't be making me laugh when you're saying these things because your delivery is too entertaining.
It's awful. It's awful, but you have to. That's why I find for myself, and I've spoken to countless people now about it because I share so openly. And yes, that's not how everyone wants to speak about the conversation. It is the worst thing you can go through. But I was speaking with someone recently, and she told me she hadn't told anyone that she was bulimic. And I said, "Are you like, you're really like sneaky, go to the toilet in like restaurants and stuff?" And I said, "I'm not. I was like the world's worst bulimic. So I'd go to the toilet and be like, whoa." So I had to go home. So it was even worse. But like, it was then enforced the behaviour even more. So that was really difficult, and I couldn't tell anyone.
And what were you doing at the time? So you had a job at the time you were in the city?
Yeah. So nowhere near the city there. No one would have wanted that version of me. So I worked in Halifax in the counter in the bank.
But in other words, it was a secret what you...
Yeah, and I told no one apart from Mum. And that was only because I was forced to one day because I was sent home from work because I couldn't talk because I was so like calorie deprived. And that was on and off for many years, and eventually got myself to university after like, I quit everything I had, sold my Vauxhall Tigre and flew one way. I got like 600 quid for it. It's like red hairdresser's car.
Awesome.
Flew one way to Argentina and like travelled round working for food and a bed with like 1,500 quid, which lasted about a year. So we drove one way, teaching myself Spanish. I had a little pocket book and I'd cover the words and try and remember each night. And you make a lot of mistakes. So like the first mistake I remember in Argentina, I was doing Duolingo. I thought I was absolutely like mustard. I was so ready. Awful. ¿Dónde se puede coger un bus? Like, where can you catch a bus in Spanish? In Argentina, coger means to fuck. So I said, they said to these like group of Argentinian guys, where can I fuck a bus? So, but that's something you remember forever.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Coger and buses, exactly. So eventually got to a point in Ecuador where I'd learned Spanish and I helped this family set up a hostel business on the side of a mountain, which was amazing. Then I thought, I'm capable of like more than my lot. I think I can do this. So I applied to go uni, like the worst uni in the country. Said, go on then fella, we'll give you a go. Got there, still struggling to work myself out. Transferred to Oxford Brookes in second year, worked really hard there, started to understand myself, my neurodiversity, like my neurodivergence a bit more, and got a first class degree, got accepted as like the wild card onto the Deloitte grad scheme and working as an analyst there, and started to share then and piece together, like create community, like spaces where people could talk about this stuff. Again, like you start speaking to one person, to 5 to 10, and you realise that no one's there to judge you. You want to create that space. Everyone's going through some version.
But not everyone does that. Do you think that's just a mindset thing, dare I say? Is that just part of who you are? Was there something then that you thought, I want others to perhaps have empathy in the way that I didn't have it?
That's a good question. Everything I do is to help people not end up where I did, and if they do, to know they're not alone. And through slowly speaking to people, you realise everyone's going through some version of it. And you find when you create these spaces and you look people in the eyes, you're talking about this stuff, that they get it, they see you. And when you start to then see that people are having conversations about it, they're getting the support, and perhaps you've helped them do it 10% faster than you got the support, or they didn't stay silent as long as you did. Just makes it all worthwhile. I would have done anything for most of my life to step into the shoes of someone else. I hated who I was. I didn't look in the mirror. I was like, fuck you, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? But then I was like, this was why this happened. It sounds all like a bit much, but like this is why, because then I can turn up and I can help others and I can laugh at myself and create the space so people can talk about it.
But even then, as a young, dare I say, British man, it's still quite a lot both to realise and then flip that on its head entirely and start inviting that kind of critique.
It was never like the whole thing at once. It was, I didn't step on the stage and say I'm a bulimic former suicidal thoughts and ideation. It was one piece at a time. Like that would have been a bit much, wouldn't it? I'd say I've got a new manager on a product. Hey Steve, quick one. Do you know what I mean? It's one piece at a time. And then you unlock the confidence and you say, okay, so I'm feeling this, or I went through this. And people are like, okay, cool, what do you need?
But even the way you're dissecting and articulating now, like your tone is a weapon. And I mean that a really positive one.
Thank you.
You've made me laugh 5 times already about subjects that are terribly serious. And it's not because we're demeaning.
Trivialising it at all. No,
precisely.
It's the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the absolute opposite.
And do you think that was something that it's a bit like when comedians realise at a very young age that they're quite funny and they're like, oh, this is good, I'm getting response, and I start using it more. Do you think you recognised quite quickly when you were talking openly about it that, oh, there's something powerful here?
That took about 3 years.
Right.
So it was quite serious, somber, but creating the spaces. The humour, I think it's more of a late ingestion and that's as you understand yourself and you talk about these things, then you can like see it for what it is and laugh at it because it isn't you. Like we say, I am anxious. You're not anxious. You're feeling anxious feelings. Do you know what I mean? Like you separate that. And when you see that as separate, that it wasn't you that was the issue. It was where you were, the situation, the support and everything else. So when I first started doing it, no. And I was at Deloitte the first time and everyone was so well spoken. And I was like, I'm so fortunate to work with amazing people. And there's so many good people there. But I felt very out of place. Like no one had like tattoos. Yes, it's self-inflicted, right? Woe is me. But like I did feel very different. And I wanted to sound and be so proper and like these people. And it didn't work out first time. I had to leave to go and like go elsewhere because I knew this was where I wanted to work full time. I kept getting pulled back into projects that weren't as interesting. So it was, I think slowly the humour's come into it more and more. And it's as you find that voice and you get used to it and you see how people resonate, because you wouldn't go in with a joke like that from day zero.
No.
But you find that actually in this space, you think about it as like a matrix. You can have like a really deep conversation or like a shallow one, but you can be light in it or heavy.
That's nice.
Across the two, right? You can talk about something really trivial and be a heavy conversation. You know people like that in your life.
Absolutely.
They talk about the news, you're like, oh, bloody hell, it's just heavy sitting near them. But you can bring lightness to serious topics. And what choice do we have in the time that everything's so polarizing and stressful to try and create those spaces? And that's just one element of my work and the talks and stuff, and it's been a privilege. But no, I'm still learning.
Going back a touch, the young you, so this is post Oxford Brookes, you're in Deloitte, then what? What came next? When did this start becoming proper business, for example?
Yeah. So learn about like program management, running these big program schemes. And then I was working on the side at Deloitte doing the wellbeing function, which is additive. And I'm like, something is not right. It's not being like treated with the same respect as like a finance function or ops or anything else. I said, but I know the value of creating these spaces and creating high performing places. So, and I could see that, but there's just a huge disconnect. And people talk about this well-being space. They say it's like nice feelings. They've got qualitative statements. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral case. But unfortunately, businesses don't work on morals. And if Trump's raising his tariff by 10% in Malaysia, that's going to be a priority for your business over the wellbeing function, which takes a back step. So I said, well, we need to treat this like almost like a science and like look at the workplace and try and create good work for people instead of giving people more stuff. We don't need any more stuff. According to Microsoft, we check get distracted by their technology every 2 minutes in the day. Yeah, so it takes 25 minutes to get into a state of focus. So the maths ain't mathsing, you know what I mean? And we're never
It never occurs.
Never ever able to get into a place where we can do deep work now for people that sit on laptops. And we valorize people who are like sending emails and doing stuff late and then sitting on calls all day, but we confuse being busy and being productive. For me, that's where the conversation starts. So I said, well, how can I look at this to create the space where well-being arises? Because well-being is an output of good work. It's not an input, it's not an event, it's not an app. It's as much as those things have created conversations. So I've worked at Sainsbury's and was leading wellbeing at Sainsbury's Tech, which was amazing. And we did loads of good stuff during the pandemic. So that started in 2020, and that was when I started writing and speaking about this stuff, using what I'd learned at Deloitte in the years previous. I was made redundant, so that was cool. And I was like, maybe I haven't picked the right thing. I went to a big fintech company where we did some awesome work, and the average work week was really high. So I said, we need to focus on this. We focus on how to use the tech properly and cut 5 hours per person off the work week, saving 2.4 million hours for the business, which then reduced people leaving by 3.2%, which saved millions. And for me, that's well-being. It's creating a space where smart people can do whatever the hell it is they need, because you need something different to me. And the biggest thing we can do for people with well-being at work is give them 5 minutes themselves in a world that we spend...
As simple as that.
Simple as that. And then encourage the behaviours by celebrating people who are picking those moments, be it a parent who's finishing at 4 o'clock to pick their kids up and still gets the project done. Because right now we say, all right, so Janet worked all weekend, got it done, congratulations, Janet. I'd rather say Mo actually finished at 4 o'clock every day. He's more productive than her and he got it done, right, and picked his kids up.
It feels so obvious when you describe it as such. But even when you talk about well-being, if you look at platforms, this isn't disparaging any particular platform, but well-being is hot on, let's say, Instagram, social media, should we say, full stop. But the amount of well-being you consume the entire time of social media would be perfectly replaced by just actually committing to those 5 minutes.
There's a difference in wellness and well-being. Is a really clear distinction that needs to be made. So wellness is the pursuit of optimal health. The industry is worth like $9.2 trillion. That includes a hot stone massage. That is the content that you're looking at. That's wellness content. Well-being is one's subjective satisfaction with their life. And that is much, much more holistic. That includes your health, your finances, your relationships. You don't need wellness, you do need well-being. And actually we
That's
conflate the
interesting.
two things, and we look at wellness at work and the additive, the events, and they're great, as I said, when we got 5 minutes to ourselves. But if you give someone a stress management webinar when their work week is 49 hours, you're shining a light on the issue, doing nothing to address the underlying stresses, which then actually worsens subjective wellbeing. Oxford Wellbeing research found this.
You've just made it worse.
Yeah, 11 out of 13 interventions actually worsens well-being in the short term.
Wow, that's an unbelievable stat.
So, but again, they use a very simplistic measure, how like your subjective satisfaction with your life. We're more complex than that. And actually a financial well-being intervention could be the perfect person who needs to, perhaps me when I was 19 and at the end of 2 overdrafts. But are you going to be happier? No. So the question is wrong. And then we have to think about it differently. So by treating it objectively like a science, looking at the impact on the business, showing the exec the impact of looking after their people or not, and this was the thinking I've kind of developed over the years. And I came back to Deloitte then to build the Wellbeing Consultancy and taking that thinking around the world. And we worked with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, positively influenced about 1 million people at this point in workplaces around the world. And it's not...
By starting in C-suite, by starting at the top?
Exactly. You say, this is the financial opportunity to look after your people. In the UK now, absenteeism is 9.4 days, which was risen 20.5% since 2 years ago, where it was 7.8.
Gosh, that's rapid.
Yeah, massive. But that's nothing compared to Norway, which is 11.8 days. But that's because they have an incredible social security system and they pay full absence. So that's quite interesting. The UAE is 11.4 days, but that's because they can't leave their jobs because their visa is tied to their employment, which is why their attrition is much lower. So there's all these like little nuance. But when you start to look at it and look at the health of the organization, treat it again like a science with discipline and respect, then you will get the opportunity to do the things that actually move the lever. And when you understand then that the biggest cause of long-term sick leave and third leading cause of short-term is mental health, then it will get the priority it needs, because then you can start to quantify the impact of not looking after your people.
And is prioritising it within organisations and businesses still, is there still a massive shortfall of CEOs who actually recognise it? Is that still a fight for you?
It's changing perception. You've got incredible people in this space, so many who work so hard, but the people who are working are often on the periphery and they can't get the data they need to prove that these things have actually worked. So we're looking to papers to prove and then justify the impact of what we've done without actually measuring it. And that's because they don't exist inside the organisation. Look at how we use the meetings, the work culture, the management, the reporting, all those things. That's where the biggest impact can be felt. So actually the change needs to be like a shift from like well-being and D&I being something that's over there, something that's fully integrated into the business. This is just how we do work here. When you focus on creating an inclusive environment where diverse individuals can turn up however they like, be it neurodivergent, different backgrounds, race, gender, anything, then you create a place where well-being can arise. But until that's the case, so they all come together, but currently they're competing for time and events and actually adding onto an agenda that's not changing at all, or a day that's elongating.
When we talked earlier about well-being or wellness on, let's say, social media feeds, whether we talk about the watches we're wearing, the health apps on our phones, the whatever devices that are tracking every movement and piece of data, for example,
Yep.
do you see that as a net positive, or ultimately is that negative? Is that just adding to the problem?
Again, I don't like speaking like absolutes. So there's always like, there's the grey zone with everything,
Yeah.
right? So, but if you think about it this way, it's people on socials, they're trying to sell you something. Wellness is worth 9.6 trillion, as I said. That's a lot of wedge, right? And people are profiting from it. Come buy my 12-week juice fast. I'll fix whatever it is that's going wrong with your life. Everything. I'll give you a discount as well, I promise.
I'm in.
Yeah, Big Bry's juice fast. You know what I mean? It's just water with a splash of cayenne pepper. I don't actually do this part, just to be clear. So, but they're trying to sell something. They're trying to deliver something, and we say that like meditation is one of the best things we can do. Brilliant. It's like a phraseology issue, like a language thing. Because if you go to me when I was working on a building site, you need to meditate. I'll tell you to piss off. But actually, I think the best meditators in the world are bricklayers.
Why?
So you work on a conservatory. Imagine this: you're in a garden. You got the first course built. You got a low brick wall. 10 o'clock comes round, or just before 10, kettle's on. He's going to make his cup of tea stronger than anything you've ever seen, right? He chucks 2 tea bags in there because he don't like it weak. He grabs his cup of tea. He goes to sit on the end of the wall. He makes his roll up in silence. You don't talk to Big Tell when he's making his roll up. You know what I mean?
I love this.
He's sitting there. He's got his tea next to him, bit of heat coming off it. Sits there. Smokestacks looking out at the distance, the end of the garden for 5 minutes. What's that if that's not meditation
I
or
agree
taking a minute for
completely,
yourself?
yeah.
Do we need an app to make us do this? We use a fitness app to track our calories so we eat better. We can eat better without it. We use a meditation app so we can spend 5 minutes without our phone. Make that make sense. These things can be amazing, help us create the habits and structures, but then we can become beholden to them. There's something called orthosomnia, which is the obsession with sleep data to the point where it actually detriments your sleep. So if you wear a wearable, it says you've slept 6 hours, you've actually slept 8. Your cognitive performance will be that as if you've slept 6.
The idea that you get berated or castigated when you wake up because you didn't sleep well enough.
And then you're stressed about it next night. You can't go to sleep because you worry about your sleep score. Right?
Which is an absurd paradox that
is.
we've all fallen into.
But again, some people hugely benefit from understanding about themselves, but then is that going to be the right thing in the long term? Again, my second TED talk was called The Secret to Wellbeing. Ain't that flipping secret, really? Understand yourself, not what you were told as a kid by your parents or people around you or some dude on social media who's spending a week in an ashram, right? Ask yourself what you need, what the best version of you in 5 years looks like. Sit down, think about it. Create the time, and that's small pockets, little bits. As we said, if you did 10 press-ups every time you went to the loo, you do 29,200 press-ups this year. If you got 6 meetings per day and you cut each one by 5-10 minutes, you'll save 4.8 work weeks worth of time this year. It's the little things that matter. Einstein said that compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you're 3,778% better at the end of the year with compound interest. And you would not mind that return on your ISA, would you? Right? So it's about understand yourself, not what other people are telling you. Really think about it and feel it, because you need to have that. Needs to be so strong in your mind that you push back against the digital distractions and quick dopamine hits. And it has to be fun because it's something you've got to turn up and do every day. Well-being is never achieved. It's something we have to make space for. Therefore, we've got to enjoy it. And what you need, again, is different. Then you need to share that with people, create some like a little bit of pressure. If a habit tracker helps, if a sleep tracker helps, brilliant. But it isn't, they're never the panacea.
Is there anything in the story, I mean, the show is Story Co. Do you think the ability to tell a story in a small or long form, or the ways that you do, is the cause of so much of your own success? Would benefit from better storytelling about this space, full stop? With
the health space, people you remember numbers, it's crazy.
You do?
Yeah, people are talking to me now, right? Not you. So, and I'm like, I found out at 31 I'm autistic as well, which makes a lot of things make sense, and I guess it's really handy for me. It's difficult, been very difficult for most of my life, understanding why certain things stress me out so much, but now I get that. And I think you can have those statistics, and I find that I would over-index on them and use that, but you have to tell the narrative around it, because we're feeling beings, aren't we? Brexit happened because of stories, not because of objective data, despite what the 350 mil on the bus said. These are the things that win out. So if you can put the two together, have truth, show whatever it is that you're doing or what you're communicating as something of value with those numbers, with that proof, and tell a story around. That's the magic sauce. And I think by doing those things, bringing the proof, telling the stories, you can bring this into the health space, one of the most difficult conversations ever. And again, it's bringing that lightness to a serious conversation. That's where Healthy was born, the world's first corporate health operating system.
Tell us a little bit more about Healthy.
We spoke about the speaking, my story, that's on the side. The main work is quantifying what good work looks like for people, proving the value of health. Because it's absolutely a priority, but it's taken us a back step. And through the work I've done with Jack, with Bupa, with Deloitte, with companies around the world, I find that when you can quantify these efforts, then you find that people are invested in them. Well, I built essentially a platform that enables organizations to understand how effective all their healthcare spend is and actually prove the value of it for the first time. So now, if you've got private medical, you've got Jack, or you've got health assessments, we can help you understand what's the material impact of that been on your organization. Because if there isn't one, then perhaps it isn't the right thing. And perhaps a lot of the stuff that's been pushed out is smoke and mirrors. At Jack, we helped NatWest to reduce mental health absence by 6.9% while using the platform. It's correlative rather than causational, but this helps us to say this is something that matters. This is something that you really need to address, and this is why. So it's bringing it all together, and yeah, it's really exciting.
And beyond the anecdotal kind of evidence of individuals and organisations extolling the virtues of this and the new practices that are in place, is it the passing on of the love of being a part of it that it will be the ultimate success of this?
I love what I do, but my time is 1-for-1, and I find that at the moment I can only reach so many people with how I'm speaking, so I need to take this thinking and develop something that can scale, and that's what's happening here. And ultimately, the data points are stories, aren't they? We know you've launched this thing, you had 9.4 days absence. Over the window of which you've done that, the UK has gone up to 9.6, you've gone down to 9.2, the delta is X. We can estimate the impact of what you've been doing to BC. You can now take that back, having brought that to your organisation, and celebrate the amazing work you've done with a story, with a data-led story. That doesn't happen. this is going to fundamentally change the way that people talk about this stuff at work. And I'm buzzing because I've seen it like in pockets with one-to-one and see when they see, it's done this, it's had this impact, fantastic. It's the missing piece of the story. Is the data-led story. And this is what's going to happen. And it impacts the healthcare organisation because they can deliver at scale. It then helps them to optimise, actually pulling away from like public use of care so people can utilise NHS appointments, freeing them up. Then it helps the organisation to prove all the stuff they've done has had a material impact. And actually, it's not gauche to talk about the money and value created when you talk about creating positive human impact. And we pull these things together and it completely changed the narrative in this space.
Is it then your role to tell the stories about it and around it in the way that, for example, you're doing right now? Is that
Exactly.
what's left of this tonality and skill and brilliant storytelling kind of orator style that you have?
My girlfriend, she laughs. She's like, basically saying, like, I don't want to be like a CEO, I want to be like a visionary. I don't want to run a business. I don't want to do the tax stuff. I couldn't care less. I'll get someone to do that. I want to be out there, like, extolling these things, like communicating how it needs to change. We're going to give a light version out so people can at least get some version, even if they're not part of it. And then we're going to
for all size businesses.
Everyone.
Fantastic.
At least so we can elevate the conversation enough, and then people will come on if they see the value in it, and then we can then spread that influence. So we're launching in the UK, the UAE, and the US. So we're basically setting up pilots, like early design partners in each market. And then part of the funds that we create as well will then be reinvested in the healthy fund, and we'll support people with elective surgery they couldn't possibly afford, or charities that are doing good things. We want to make sure we provide value at every single part of the chain. We're the plumbing. We just pull it all together and create a story and a narrative and help people understand where it can be more efficient, what was the impact of it, and where are we heading if we don't do anything. It's all story, painting those scenarios or stories of non-impact. If you don't change anything, this way you'll be in 3 years. You create the opportunity for amazing people in this space to do amazing work and communicate the value of that. And that's just what's been missing, which is why the latest budget didn't mention one thing about health, because it's almost unquantifiable. Yeah, it's interesting to sit here and think about it through the story lens, because it sounds the opposite of a story when it's data-led. It's really boring, it's objective, but ultimately that's exactly what it is.
What would the young man version of you who first assembled a room full of a handful of people to share a moment, what would he think of that? Was that the goal?
No, I think he'd be quite surprised. Yeah, he'd be like, wow, you've gone a bit bigger on the tattoos there, fella. That's what he'd say first. So, it was beyond the realms of anything I thought possible. And I started by sharing those stories because I wanted to develop the belief in myself that I could do that. And each time you put something out, you'd agonise over the writing. And now I believe...
Do you ever agonise now over decisions?
Not so much over the writing. Some people just want to tear you down, and you're going to have the same on socials. It's amplified. So you can never appease everyone. But despite that, you focus down on the negative comment. When my book went live, there was a double page spread in the Daily Mail. I was online as well, and I went down to the comments. I should not have done that. I'm the biggest piece of trash the world has ever seen. I'm a wellness peddler. That's what I am.
Interesting.
I said, well, you haven't bloody read it, have you, Nigel? So...
It feels like you had an awful lot of foundational life experience and moments which took you close to the edge, that informed so much of what then happened, but it still wasn't part of a master plan. Does it excite you then that you're still not done, or do you have a clearer idea of what's next or where this could lead?
Yeah, that vision piece. I got a really strong image in my mind, which I kind of come back to, and it's actually Marcus Rashford getting his MBE. So I won't become a Barcelona football player. That's not on my vision board, right?
Keep yourself time.
That ship sailed, mate.
Never say never.
Yeah, no, that never. Absolutely never. If anyone's seen me play football, they realise how hilarious that is. So, but it's more his contribution to society. I've worked with organisations with like 1.4 million people. I spoke to about 100,000, 110,000 live, about 20 million on socials. And Healthy, I believe, is going to blow all that out of the water.
I'm sure.
Transforming this space. And I truly believe, I said years ago, when I started doing this work, I was going to engage 1 billion people in the betterment of well-being, and that has got away from me a little bit. But I truly believe that's going to happen now.
Yeah, I think I believe that as well, and it probably won't be that far off. Your Rashford example, I think, is lovely because there was such legitimacy about
what he did in that space is beautiful.
It was amazing. I could not be more supportive. But to change actual legislation as a footballer from Withamshire, ultimately dealing with a subject that he just felt firsthand because not eating breakfast in the morning is an issue, and to actually go all the way into the house, to Parliament and change legislation as a single sole footballer, like that's I agree, incredible. And I adore that ambition that you can affect and impact so many as a consequence of that. My late granddad always used to say, stop a while and smell the roses. Do you do that?
I love the work, so I'll be working this weekend on healthy stuff. It's a pleasure and a privilege. I'm not so good at sitting still.
No.
So like I get excited by it. It's more exciting than anything else in my life. And he who has a why can deal with any how, right? Like the Nietzsche quote that was in Viktor Frankl's amazing book, like A Man's Search of Meaning, which was a fundamental pivot moment in my life. And my friend bought that for me.
How lovely. There'll be young people watching and listening to this, very inspired by that. Many of them probably have grown up in like the grind, the hustle culture aspect. And it's a difficult fine line, that, because, I have a 16-year-old boy and you try and teach the importance of work ethic, of course. But there's a side to it that is just all wrong, right? This kind of... How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to that understanding yourself, and that vision piece is the first element of your well-being. If you're doing something that's fundamentally not aligned with your principles or where you want to be, you're going to reach a point where you can't do it anymore much faster. And I think most people haven't taken the time to work that out, and I didn't for most of my life. So I never asked myself that question. I think I've kind of been really fortunate to land on it by happenstance, and now I check it fairly regularly. So if I was to say to anyone, think about where you want to be in like 3 years, what that version of you looks like, where you wake up, what you're doing, you collecting an MBE, like what does that look like? And the closer you can get to that version, the easier it's all going to become, and then things will fall in place. But it's about fundamentally prioritise being absolutely non-negotiable. Well-being was my first handle on Instagram. It was a juxtaposition of it. It was like you focus on those things before you do absolutely anything else. So I want people to adopt like a healthish attitude, like be selfish with your health. And you ruthlessly prioritise things you need to be your best self, because if you don't do that, you can't turn up as your best for anyone else anyway. For most of my life, it was calling my nan at like 12, 15. We started the pandemic, not most of my life, starting the pandemic every day. If I didn't call her by like 12:45, she's leaving me voice notes. All right, Ryan, I hope you haven't forgotten me. I think, all right, Red, chill out. Like, that's what we call her. She had red hair. Never dyed it though. So she flipping did. But I rang her every day at 12:15. Now and again, I would say I couldn't do meetings at that time, because I'd give my nan a quick bell over lunch. And now and again, I'd have to like push it back. But I call her every day. I don't regret or remember any meetings I didn't push back. I lost her 2 and a bit years ago, and that's gave me joy, that deep sense. And there was those little things that we can do every single day. Prioritise the hell out of them. Don't apologise for it. Tell the bloody world, because then if you start to do that, you'll encourage others to do the same. And it is the little things. It's not anything massive. Often it's a dog walk or getting out or having a nice cheese toastie before a podcast, right? And it's not often those stereotypical image of like wellness and abbed up dudes and beautiful women doing certain things. It's about the little things that bring you joy.
Yeah.
And then if you can prioritise that, understand where you're heading, make the time to work on something that matters.
There's something quite cultural, dare I say it, about this country. It's like when you phone someone like, how are you? The first word is, yeah, busy, really busy. Like, you have to be busy. If anyone goes, do you know what? I've hardly done anything for 4 days. People will be like, you're all right. Do we need to call someone?
You are not allowed to have free time. You're not allowed, because if you do, people feel like they're going to fill it. I think there's like a reframing that needs to go around that. I would much rather have someone on my team that can get shit done in an hour, rather than Steve who spends 7 hours like mooching around the office, breathing on people, right? Like, it's like
Steve's got to stop doing that.
He's, like coffee breath Steve. You know the guy I'm on about, right? I don't actually have a Steve in my life, so I'm not taking on anyone. And yes, there is a valorization of it, but if you're focusing on pure input and grunt work, unfortunately, if you work on a laptop, that's going to be automated soon anyway. So your difference is having space, thinking differently, being creative, culture, community, connection. Think of the C's, the things that are done better
together. So let's touch
together.
upon that, because I dare say you've got a vision of a future. We're in a world at the moment that I think is about to have the most seismic shift from the likes of AI. I think, sadly, a huge portion of the workforce is about to find themselves, like you've just implied, out of work. I think the hope is the return to what it is most to be human and have that time again. Is there therefore positivity that could come out of this?
I don't want to be someone who makes like predictions, right? But imagine we're in like the worst.
Let's do it.
Okay. So we're in like the worst bit. We've had like everyone, we've been given like Zoom and everything else. Now we're plugged into that like 9 hours a day for people that are fortunate enough to work on a laptop, which is like half the British economy, right? And we're sitting on that all day. That's going to get automated away. A lot of that. We'll be able to work asynchronously properly, like the promise that Slack originally said they were going to deliver for all of us. But unfortunately now it just ruins evenings and relationships, right? Because your manager can get hold of you quicker than anyone else. So soon that's going to get automated away. Then we're going to create space. And Rory Sutherland, my favourite speaker, he said that workplaces now need to be, like, you have 2 sorts of spaces. You have like the library space and the pub space. And he said the pub space where you come together, you sit down, you think, you imagine, you use the tools, all the time that you freed up from meetings, actually think about what your clients could want and deliver something differently. And then you've got the library space for heads down work focus. And it's about rethinking about how we come together and creating space for what's important. And we've seen now everyone's been ordered back to the office to sit on laptops, to pay 74 quid to travel in, sitting on a tube where they can't get a seat, right? And they're spending time away from their kids. For what end? And I haven't seen one bit of data as to tell people why they're coming back beyond the rose-tinted glasses of a few execs.
Yeah.
And we're going to find again that we've pivoted back to that. So we're in a place now where we're constantly glued to our technology, for those of us, back sitting in an office that we travel 2 hours for, sit on the court opposite someone who's doing the same, and we've got 6 spare seconds to grab a horrible Pret sandwich and smash that down in between calls. That's where we are. That part of the work will get taken away. And yes, there's going to be disruption, but I imagine there will be a place where we can actually focus on coming together to do quality work. Because you think, what are the best days at work? Those where you sit on calls all the time, or those when you're actually together like this?
Hugely, by a mile.
We're seeing this across the piece, but imagine now these tools are going to free us up that time, that promise to do actually quality work. And I think we're in the in-between bit.
The in-between bit is my sort of short-term concern too. It's a bit like every person and their dog are using GPT to draft, the mass on platforms like LinkedIn from people who've
They've got the long dashes.
You can see them. You can recognize it. So as soon as you recognize it, you turn off. You physically scroll past. But also, it's just creating a density that's hard to wade through. But I agree. I think we need to get past that.
Like you think about return to office debate, we want to maximise flexibility, enabling people from previously marginalised backgrounds, working parents, people who are neurodivergent, who live further outside the city, people who are socioeconomically challenged, etc., etc. You get it, right? You maximise the workplace for those people to participate in equal footing. But if you go fully remote, then you lose that sense of belonging. We are hairless apes at the end of the day, some of us more hairless than others, right? And there is that spectrum, and there is a minimum that everyone needs to come together at least a little bit, because we've got to see each other. That's where bonds are created. Culture isn't developed over Slack, despite people trying, and
the learning,
all of it. You learn by osmosis, by sitting next to you,
making mistakes. You say
this 100%,
and just picking stuff up which aren't part of a 40-minute Zoom environment where you're hearing someone work next to you say stuff on a call or act in a certain way. The bit I'm still concerned about is that grad level age crew who aren't getting that first hand.
We found
invisible learning.
One company I was working at, the attrition for that cohort was 3x before after the pandemic compared to before. Gosh. Because people were joining, working remote, couldn't get that stickiness, couldn't upskill, didn't feel the vibe, left. When another offer like 2k more came in. Why would you not? You're a mercenary at that point. You have no loyalty to that organisation, because what have they given you beyond the laptop? Right?
Gosh, that's interesting.
And this is where I think the opportunity is, to create more spaces to come together for that pub type environment, to bring people together.
Make all businesses like pubs is your point.
Exactly. Like back table 212. See, full circle moment. No,
but where the business enables it, I do believe that. Those set piece creative moments, plan them in advance so that anyone who's not there actually gets FOMO for the first time, because they're like, God, there's wicked creative thinking and decisions being made in what looks like a really vibey day in the office today, and I feel like I want to be a part of it.
But then when you do that, though, then you'll understand the biggest challenge to that is that we spend 57% of our day on calls and responding to emails and instant messages. Unless we create the space to come together, then we'll find that actually is even worse. So travelling into an office to then sit on Teams calls. So there's layers to it.
That's such an interesting point, and the way you refer to spaces, because I immediately went to offices in an office-like environment. What about retail? So if you go to, we're here in North London, recording this today, not far away on Regent Street, Gymshark have got a store, which is effectively the physical living embodiment of that brand. But you can go in as a 14-year-old who can't afford a gym membership, and you go to a lift bar at the back, not a Genius bar, and you learn how to bench weights. It's a physical embodiment of the brand. Do you work as well in corporate environments like that, where you talk about the importance of space and bringing people together?
Yeah, because then they're more limited then on their scope, aren't they? And it's like, but you still need to create the opportunity to have autonomy over your time. People that work on shop floors have a very limited opportunity there to do something different. But we need to understand how they spend their days, where they are. And when we think about that, there's always an opportunity to maximise flexibility, be it temporally, geographically, or modally.
Gosh.
And you think about where they work, when people work, how they work. And if you can think about those, balanced against a sense of belonging, then we're in a beautiful place. And there's always an opportunity to give someone some agency over their work. give them an opportunity to own it, to do it a bit different. Perhaps you can't change their location because they're on Regent Street store. You can change how they operate with customers and to own that.
I love that. How fantastic. So as we reach the end of what is just such a fabulous conversation, there's so many parts to it. I feel like I've learned today, so thank you. Speaking to you full stop is imbued with positivity, even by the fact that you made me laugh about issues of terrible severity.
Yeah, I apologise for that.
But talking about, and we took a more optimistic tone about the use of AI, but with what you're doing now, what are the hopes amongst this very uncertain, tumultuous world that we're in right now?
For us or for me?
Well, let's go us. Are we changing for the better, or are we fighting a losing cause? Like,
I'm Pollyanna. I'm always half glass full, and I know there are amazing people like me, my co-founder James, my best mate. We're doing something really cool in this health space, using this technology to do it at a pace you couldn't have even imagined, which is going to fundamentally positively impact millions of people. There's going to be people in pockets all over the world doing exactly the same thing and across different industries. So I think we're in for a beautiful time.
that's nice.
And I think there's going to be, without doubt, hardship, but when isn't there? But I think we've got a chance to redesign what work looks like, how we access healthcare services. And that's afforded to us by the speed in which we can develop new things. So I choose to lean in the positive camp. And then for me personally, like, where I want to continue to develop is telling this story, helping people sharpen my narrative so I'm not all over the place perhaps so much, but perhaps I don't need to. Maybe that's why it resonates. And now it's stepping into this new identity as a leader of a business rather than a consultant. And it's going to be an identity shift, and another one that I'm really excited about. Most of them in my life weren't intentional, but this one is. And I'm really going to think about how I step into this new place and create space for what's important for my beautiful girlfriends, for my family, my friends, for stuff like this. Because this is the best part of any work, isn't it? And to come here, and I hope that we get a chance to speak together in 2 years, and I'll tell you we've positively impacted 7.8 million people, and this is the impact of it. Well, that's going to happen. Whether we speak or not, hopefully that's the debatable bit.
I'm going to be here for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
If you enjoyed this week's show, please follow us on Instagram @StoryCodePod, subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help. StoryCode is a Telltale Industries production, recorded in Studio One at the brilliant TYX Studios in King's Cross. Produced by Jago Lee, assistant produced by Nellie Batt, edited by Ryan O'Meara. Special thanks to Craig Heptonstall, Jack Freegard, Tyler Newton, and Issa Gibson. I'm James Kirkham. This has been a masterclass in how storytelling pays in this modern media landscape. Go out, tell a story that matters. We'll see you next week.